On the heels of the successful original animation, a lot is riding on Moana 2, a sequel that nicely builds on what came before. Moana gets a sweet little sister, Simia, and that personal element really raises the stakes in terms of what the title character is fighting for and who she's trying to get back to. The animation is still strong and the main character beats are affecting, but there are certain aspects of the story, namely the villain and his motivations, that stand in the film's way of true greatness. Moana 2 was initially developed as a TV show before being turned into a feature film. It could have worked just fine in that format, better allowing the supporting characters to flourish and develop deeper relationships with both Moana and Maui, who stuck inside an oversized killer clam until the second half of the film. In terms of the story, which sees Moana on the journey to find the island of Montefitu and reconnect the humans from the other islands who have been separated by the god Nalo's curse, Moana 2 has its standout moments. Between its exhilarating adventure sequences and the heart of the story being the relationships between Moana and Simia and Moana and Maui, the Disney animation packs an emotional punch. For Moana, growing up isn't just about being a wayfinder, it's about the very real responsibility that comes with it. It's a responsibility Moana takes seriously, and she feels the effects and constantly worries about what would happen should she fail in her endeavour. In Moana 2, the titular character is looking beyond herself and to the future and what it means for her people. It's powerful in that sense. A couple of songs, Beyond and Get Lost, are especially catchy, and the sequel doesn't take the easy way out. That is to say, it isn't primarily focused on the nostalgia we may have for the original animation, and actually takes its time setting up Moana's journey before she takes to the ocean once more. The animated sequel shows just how much Moana has grown since we last saw her, and she's got new dreams and fears to contend with that give her character development a lovely, thoughtful boost and the story its higher stakes. There's a thoroughly lovely theme about the strength of togetherness that also shows up in the way of Moana and her wayfinding crew. Brainy canoe maker Lotto, Maui superfan Moni, and grumpy farmer Kile come together. The sequel underscores unity by contrasting isolation, the true community killer. Sadly, this theme becomes less defined by Nalo's machinations, which have unclear reasoning, and whereas the first film had a personal slant in terms of Maui's actions against Te Fiti and making things right, Moana 2 doesn't. Sometimes a movie is only as strong as its villain, and Moana 2 could have used a better one. On paper, Nalo is interesting, though the fact that he doesn't appear on screen until the mid-credit scene, yes, really, is a glaring weakness of the film. We're often told about Nalo from Maui and Matangi, a goddess who is also bound by Nalo's curse, but the lack of him is strange. The characters claim he gains power by separating the islands, but we don't see what that looks like from a visual storytelling standpoint, lessening his villainous power overall. I thought about this a lot while watching the film, which took away from the experience of enjoying it. Younger audiences may not be so worried about what Nalo is or isn't up to and why, but it's a hole in an otherwise decent sequel that pushes the limits of its main character and how far she's willing to go to help her beloved island. Nalo's absence undermines the Disney sequel as a whole. Without his appearance, Moana is left fighting a scary thunderstorm in the god's place, which is far less effective. It's a good sequence that ultimately falters. The supporting characters are also less defined, sticking to one-dimensional traits that don't grow beyond that. In one instance, Moni experiences something scary, but there is no time dedicated to the expression of his feelings. He clearly looks traumatized by what happened to him, but it feels like something that was either cut for time or could have been expanded upon in an episode dedicated to him had Moana 2 been a series. It's a shame because the characters are great and I was thrilled that Moana had someone to play off besides her pet rooster Heihei and Maui. I enjoyed Moana 2 for what it was and the heart at the centre of its story, but I also saw a lot of its lost potential. For some reason, Nalo's mid-credit scene appearance teases yet another sequel that, at this point, would be questionable considering his lack of influence on the film. Perhaps co-directors David G. Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Ledoux Miller's decision to cut him from the movie was meant to make him a more terrifying presence, but it had the opposite effect.